When you're one of the richest men alive, even your wedding turns into a global spectacle and a scandal. Jeff Bezos, the man who turned online shopping into a trillion-dollar empire, just threw what some are calling the royal wedding of America. But instead of cheers and admiration, he got protests, mockery, and a city full of angry locals.
Locals in Venice have been protesting for weeks about the upcoming wedding of Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez. Some locals have already started protesting the highly anticipated wedding. One group even hung a banner with Amazon founder Jeff Bezos' name crossed out with a red X from a bell tower overlooking the Venice lagoon. The activist group No Space for Bezos wrote on Facebook, "Venice is a living city, not a venue for rent to the highest bidder." The banner was eventually removed. They also plastered posters and stickers around the city, calling for protests every weekend this past month. The group said it is ready to throw themselves into the canal if necessary. Venice's mayor Luigi Brugnaro criticized the protesters, calling them a small minority just looking for attention. He praised the couple's decision to marry in Venice, noting that the wedding's economic impact could be worth millions of dollars. Critics have also condemned the event for contributing to the privatization of parts of the city.
So, what went so wrong? And why are people calling this wedding a power move instead of a love story? Let's dive into the wedding of Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez and why it sparked outrage across the globe. This wasn't just another celebrity wedding. It was a clash between obscene wealth and public resistance, a real-life example of what happens when power and privilege invade public spaces. As Bezos and Sanchez took center stage, the world couldn't look away, but not for the reasons they hoped. It was supposed to be a fairy tale wedding. Jeff Bezos and his fiancée, Lauren Sanchez, chose Venice, Italy, as the backdrop for their extravagant three-day celebration. The cost? A jaw-dropping $50 million. With private gondolas, waterfront venues, and luxury events, it looked more like a Hollywood film than a real wedding. But while the couple was sipping champagne, the locals were fuming. Streets were blocked off. Boats were rerouted. Entire sections of Venice were off-limits to its residents, all so Bezos could play out his billionaire fantasy in peace. This wasn't a celebration, it was a takeover. Locals were told to expect restricted movement, increased noise, and security blockades for days. Some were even asked to vacate their homes temporarily. And while organizers claimed it was all in the name of love, the people of Venice saw something else: exploitation. "This isn't a celebration," one resident said. "It's a takeover." Even businesses that typically benefit from tourism complained they were being shut out of the event entirely. The backlash was instant. Environmental groups like Extinction Rebellion and anti-capitalist activists filled the streets. Protesters waved signs that read "No Space for Bezos," accusing him of treating Venice like a personal theme park. They hung banners, plastered posters, and even threatened to jump into the canals if it meant stopping the wedding. Locals, already frustrated by over-tourism, now had to watch as the world's richest man hijacked their city for a weekend of decadence. But instead of scaling things back, Bezos pushed ahead, unfazed and unapologetic. One of the most striking protest tactics? A floating mannequin of Bezos himself, gripping fake money and clinging to an Amazon box as it bobbed through the canals. Locals called it artful resistance. It wasn't just about Bezos, he became a symbol of unchecked wealth and corporate greed. And while police tried to maintain order, many officers were caught on camera sympathizing with the protesters, quietly admitting that they, too, were disturbed by the event's extravagance. While protesters flooded the streets, Bezos and Sanchez partied on. From a masked ball to a wild foam party aboard a $500 million yacht, the weekend looked more like a billionaire's bucket list than a wedding. Celebrities poured in: Kim Kardashian, Oprah Winfrey, Orlando Bloom, Tom Brady, and even Ivanka Trump. Security was tight. No phones were allowed. Guests were ferried around Venice on water taxis like royalty. And with paparazzi blocked out, the mystery only made things feel more elite. But no amount of secrecy could shield them from the criticism boiling just beyond the velvet ropes. Imagine being on a yacht so large it blocks views of Venice's historic skyline, while hundreds shout from the shore for you to leave. Bezos and his guests seemed unbothered. Some insiders claimed Kim Kardashian broke the phone rule and secretly snapped videos, later shown to friends back home. One attendee even described the event as surreal, like a billionaire's masquerade in the middle of a rebellion. This wasn't just a wedding, it was an empire flaunting its success. Then came the wedding invitation, and it made headlines for all the wrong reasons. Leaked online, it looked shockingly simple. Critics called it cheap, tacky, and something made in Microsoft Paint. For a man worth over $200 billion, the invite raised eyebrows. It also included a curious note: please, no gifts. Instead, guests were asked to make donations to select charities. Some praised the gesture, saying it showed humility. Others saw it as performative, a distraction from the chaos the wedding had stirred up. Either way, it didn't stop the mockery. One commenter joked, "With all that money, you couldn't afford a decent font?" Guests were stunned at how minimal the invite was. It looked like something a middle schooler designed for a science fair, one fashion editor scoffed. Critics joked that Bezos must have spent all his money on the yacht and left none for design. And yet, despite the simplicity, rumors swirled that the leak was intentional. Why? To control the narrative, to create a viral moment that painted Bezos as down-to-earth, even as he ruled the event like a king. But here's the real twist: the wedding might not have been legally binding. A Venice city official confirmed that unless Bezos and Sanchez had already tied the knot elsewhere, their lavish ceremony didn't count under Italian law. That means all the glitz and glamour may have just been for show. So why spend $50 million on a wedding that isn't even official? For Bezos, this wasn't just about vows. It was about spectacle, about rewriting his public image, and maybe, just maybe, about reminding the world that he's still the alpha billionaire on the global stage. Bezos isn't new to controversial weddings. His previous divorce made headlines around the world, instantly turning his ex-wife into one of the richest women alive. So, it's no surprise people are speculating about the motivations behind this one. Was it love? Or was it a calculated move to craft a personal brand more aligned with the luxury elite? Legal or not, this Venice event was meant to be seen not by the law, but by the world. Look at old photos of Bezos from the late 90s, nerdy, awkward, more tech geek than tycoon. Now he's tanned, jacked, and partying with the A-list. This wedding was his final form, a reinvention of epic proportions. Analysts say this wasn't about love. It was a carefully choreographed power ritual, a way to craft a new narrative. The yacht, the celebrities, the secrecy, it all pointed to a man reshaping his legacy. He didn't just want to marry Lauren. He wanted to step into a new version of himself, one where he wasn't just rich, he was untouchable. Observers say this transformation didn't happen overnight. Over the years, Bezos swapped out his khakis and polos for tight tees and leather jackets. He began mingling with celebrities, arriving at galas, and even dabbling in space travel. This wedding was the final stamp, a message to the world that he wasn't just a businessman, he was a cultural icon. A billionaire Bond villain in the making. And Lauren? Some say she's playing the part of his glamorous co-star in this real-life blockbuster. But the fairy tale had a dark underside. Critics slammed Bezos not just for the wedding, but for what it symbolized. As Republicans in the US pushed for tax breaks that benefit billionaires, many pointed out the cruel irony. He's partying with 80,000 roses and private jets while Americans lose healthcare, one commentator raged. And it wasn't just symbolic. Some argued that US tax policy indirectly helps fund Bezos' lifestyle. As the Italian government rolled out the red carpet, everyday people were forced to pick up the tab, whether through higher local costs or political trade-offs back home. And the resentment goes deeper. Activists pointed out that Amazon's track record with workers is under scrutiny, with accusations of union busting, poor labor conditions, and tax avoidance. For many, this wedding became a symbol of everything wrong with late-stage capitalism. He could solve world hunger, but instead he's throwing yacht parties, one viral tweet said. In an age of rising inequality, the opulence wasn't just out of touch, it was offensive. But here's where the story flips. The protests worked. As backlash intensified, Bezos' team quietly changed the wedding venue. Planned boat blockades, security risks, and inflatable crocodile stunts forced their hand. Activists claimed victory, saying they disrupted the richest man on Earth and made their message heard. And while the festivities still went on, they were no longer on their terms. Even the ultra-rich can't completely drown out the voices of the people, especially when the people are loud, organized, and holding banners above Venetian canals. The planned disruption turned into something larger, a reckoning. Local art students created installations mocking Bezos. Small businesses refused to cooperate with the event. Even tourists began posting their support for the protesters online. Eventually, the pressure forced a change. Sources say Bezos' team had to move certain ceremonies behind closed doors, away from cameras and away from public scrutiny. For a man who wanted to control the story, this wasn't the ending he expected. So, what was Jeff Bezos' wedding really? A celebration of love? Maybe. But more than that, it was a power play, a stage-managed performance of status, wealth, and influence. The kind of event where every detail, from the yacht to the guest list, screams one message: I can do whatever I want. But the protests told another story. That even in a world of billionaires and private cities, people are still watching, still resisting, and still reminding the powerful that not everything or everyone is for sale. And yet, the most powerful message came not from the wedding vows, but from the people of Venice. In a city known for its beauty, art, and culture, they reminded the world that no one, not even the richest man alive, should be allowed to buy silence. Bezos may have had the money, but the people had the voice. And in this story, that voice echoed louder than any yacht party ever could.